Hey everyone, Tony D with another hot take. This one is an update on the coronavirus. Again, I'm not an expert on this stuff, but I'm not liking the stuff I read. Call me paranoid if you want, but it doesn't look good. The recent video that was going around Twitter is this video of signs in China, in a village in China, people wearing masks, and the signs say stuff like, if you go outside, you are the enemy. Outside is death. We will break your feet. If you argue, we will break your teeth. That was on the signs in China because they're trying to keep everybody inside in quarantine. Here's what I've gleaned so far about the coronavirus. It's highly contagious. The incubation period is roughly 2 weeks. You get it, but you don't show any signs of it for at least a week to maybe 3 weeks, I've heard, as high as 3 weeks. Let's say 2 weeks, split the difference. So you get this virus like you get the flu, only very, very easy. Oh, and also that the virus will stay active for 4 to 5 days on surfaces. So that's incredible. I mean, first off, that's insanely, contagious. There's another report out that said a woman in China went to church. She didn't have any direct interaction with anyone, and she was infected. 40 people in the church became infected. That's an incredible rate. So if you put all this stuff together and you apply that same sort of numbers logic or video game rules or whatever you want to call them to the United States, you have to imagine that if you got the coronavirus and had 2 weeks walking around, you don't know you have the virus. You're not suffering any symptoms whatsoever, but you have it. And you're touching things and you're talking to people. You just get it out of the air. You can get it through droplets, through your eyes, but, it could be completely airborne. I don't know if it's airborne, but it seems like it would be. It's so contagious that the woman in the church could give it to 40 people seems, if that's true, seems like it would be incredibly contagious. So, I just was doing the math in my head myself. I probably run into, over the course of the week, gosh, I would say at least 100 people, right? I mean, I go places, I go to stores, there's a lot of people I interact with, and I'm not a gregarious person, right? Like I don't like to meet people. I'm kind of an introvert in that way. So, but I'm doing the math in my head and I'm saying, well, maybe like 100 people over the course of a week. Certainly by the end of 2 weeks, it would be 100 people. Now, a lot of those people would be the same, but, it would depend on those 2 particular weeks and what I needed to do. So, I mean, if you were conservative about it, let's say it was only, 50 people, right? So all 50 of those people get infected. Now I'm patient zero, or patient zero in the United States, or in Jersey, let's say. So at the end of 2 weeks, I finally start feeling ill. What's the first thing you do? Well, you go to the doctors. So I make an appointment with my doctor, and I go into the doctor's office. He doesn't know I have coronavirus yet. I sit in the waiting room. I talk to the receptionist. I sign in on a pen, getting my virus germs on the pen. Then I go in and see the doctor. He runs some tests. He doesn't like what he sees, but he doesn't get the test back immediately. I go home, or he gives me some prescription, figuring, you probably just have this, assuming even thinks to test me for coronavirus at all. But I go home. Meanwhile, all those people in the doctor's office, including the doctor himself most likely, become infected. Every place I touched in the office is a hot spot. They all get infected. I've infected a bunch of people besides them, but now everybody in the doctor's office who are already sick get infected. Then they come back with the test results and say, oh God, your patient has coronavirus. You got to quarantine him. They call me up. They send people over and they say, you got to be quarantined. You have the coronavirus. We got to get you to a hospital. So they rush me to a hospital and attempt to quarantine me. The next thing they're going to do is they're going to ask me a bunch of questions of where I've been over the last 2 weeks. And when I tell them, they all go, oh my God. So now they contact all the people in the doctor's office, every store I went to. It's already too late. I've already met dozens and dozens of people over the last 2 weeks. I can't remember can you remember every person you met in a 2-week period? You might, but, that doesn't mean they're infected. But in the case of like surfaces, you could touch a surface, leave, and all kinds of people could touch that surface and get infected. You wouldn't know. You didn't meet those people. Even if the virus isn't that bad, say the virus only lasts 2 days on a surface. That's still 24 hours later, somebody goes into the same store, they're still getting infected. There's no way they can, if that's true, there's no way they can contain this. They've already let go a woman, I think it was a woman. She was infected she was part of the cruise ship people. They brought her into San Diego. They kept her under quarantine. Then they tested her. She tested negative. They sent her home. For 2 days, she was home. She came back, got tested again. They decided the test was wrong or bad or whatever. When they retested her, they realized she already had the virus. She was out for 2 days. How many people did she interact in just with 2 days? Now, she's in San Diego, which is a net positive in that San Diego is warm and viruses don't do well in the warmer weather. So there, and I believe there were some cases in Phoenix, I want to say, may have caught a break there, that it may be too hot for the virus to spread easy. It doesn't spread as easy in the heat. So maybe the surfaces thing is eliminated because the heat just kills the virus. But we've got new cases breaking out in South Korea, in Japan. There's some in Iran. We probably don't have to worry about those, but might be an Iranian or two coming in. We don't have too many travel restrictions. I mean, right now we have one for China, I believe, or at least at the province level, and people are being tested. But another thing I read was that the fever test doesn't work. It's not a good metric of whether or not you have the virus. The indication coming out of China is the virus is so out of control. First off, you can't trust anything the communist government says. Nothing. Because they don't want to take the blame for this. They are perfectly willing to let millions of their people die in order to contain it because they're centralized that way. They just see it as a numbers game. Well, we have a billion people. If we close off the city and 1 million people die, we'll save the rest. That's a net positive. That's what you get with centralization. It's also true that because they're so centralized, they're not as responsive, and lots of people are going to slip through the cracks. Nobody wants to be trapped in their home to starve to death, and some of these people will starve to death. Now you have to think, what's going to happen in your community if it gets that bad? Obviously, we're not ruled by the Chinese government. However, the federal government here can be kind of onerous, especially in a crisis. They don't F around. You know, they shoot looters in this country sometimes. Yeah, if you're caught looting, you could be shot. You certainly could be arrested. Now imagine the coronavirus hits big in the United States. In the state of New Jersey, I know that they've closed the roads when the weather gets really bad. They basically say no one on the roads unless it's an emergency. So you have to be an emergency vehicle, a cop or ambulance, or you're probably going to get pulled over and they're going to demand, why are you on the road? And you better have a good explanation or you're in big trouble. Now imagine they institute that statewide because there's a major breakout here and they can't control, there's not enough room at the hospitals, they can't control it, there's too many people are sick. And keep in mind too, once those sick people start going to the hospital, it's likely all the hospitals will become contaminated. Because when you're sick, you don't know what you have. So no one with the coronavirus is going to know they have it until they get tested. In the process of going into the hospital to be tested, they will contaminate everything they touch and most likely spread the disease to the receptionist, to other patients, to doctors and nurses, anybody they talk to or interactive. It's just that contagious. That's assuming, somebody who works at the hospital doesn't just get it randomly from someone who, say, just got back from South Korea, didn't know they had it, happens to know a person who works at the hospital or happens to work at the hospital, goes back to work, for the next week and a half, they're fine. They've gone to the hospital, on their regular shift, 6 days a week, let's say. They've contaminated dozens and dozens of people at the hospital. Now it's spreading all over the hospital. They have no idea it's spreading. They have no idea it's there. No one's sick. No one's showing the symptoms yet. It's not till about 10, 11, 12 days later that finally, I don't feel so good. I better go to the hospital. Because I work there and they probably get, a deal on healthcare or whatever. So maybe you're not feeling well. You go, hey, Dr. Dave, and this is maybe, I don't know, a janitor, let's say, or it's one of the nurse practitioners. Hey, I'm not feeling too well. Can you give me a prescription for ibuprofen or something? Because I think I'm going to just stay home or whatever. Well, we better just test you just to be sure. And then boom, oh crap, you have the coronavirus. We have to lock this place down. Now you've got a hospital the hospital itself is quarantined. The people who work there, they have to scrub the place top to bottom. You have to remember that just because it's a hospital doesn't mean every inch of it is sterile. And if this virus can live on surfaces, they could contaminate parts of the hospital. Yeah, the operating room and places like that, they're still going to be scrubbed down and sterile. And even the doctors who are operating. But, once you get it in a waiting room, it's not like the cleaning crew's going to sterilize every seat in the room every night. They empty the trash cans, they sweep up. If there's something on the seats, they clean it up, but they're not going to wipe down every inch of the place. So it's likely the coronavirus is coming. Now, it's not gotten here as quickly as I imagined it would get here, as contagious as it sounds. Although it's probably already here, it just hasn't broken out in a big enough way. And again, it's going to have to be a lot of people getting sick. They're going to have to know somebody got the coronavirus, and then the people around them who are getting sick are going to have to go, oh crap, I might have it too. I better go get tested. And then it's going to be a mad rush to the hospital. So at some point, they're going to have to say, we've got too many sick people. So we're going to have to prioritize. Don't come to the hospital unless you're really sick. Otherwise, and they'll probably announce on television, here's what you have to do. You have to get your fever down. You have to, rest and drink juices and soups. The moment they start doing that is the moment it's going to get very tough. That's why you need to do a little doomsday prepping. Now again, don't panic. We could get lucky. Spring could hit, and the heat could come, and then the virus is gone. Or maybe it just never really breaks out here to begin with. Maybe it just burns itself out. Maybe there's some strain of it that goes around that doesn't really make you sick, just makes you immune. A lot of different things can happen. So don't freak out. But you probably should have your sick stuff ready. What I mean by that is you have to imagine that if you get this coronavirus, even if you don't end up in the hospital, you're probably going to be sick for like 2 weeks. The very least, you're going to have to quarantine yourself for 2 weeks to make sure you don't get other people sick. So you need 2 weeks of supplies, sick supplies. So you need your cold medicines, you need ibuprofen to keep your fever down, or whatever you take if you can't take that. Sticks and Hammer says you need iodized salt, but I think he's getting a little extreme there. You never know, the power or the water could go out, so you might want to get a case of water, batteries, things like that, just in case. But you want to get a lot of soup, juice, and just have a lot of canned goods on hand in case you're just barricaded in your house or apartment or whatever, just trying to ride out the sickness. And if you do get sick, for God's sake, stay home. Look, it sucks to be sick. It sucks to use your sick days if you have them. And if you don't have sick days, it's probably even more, more of a hardship to stay home from work or whatever. I get that. But, I've worked with people who show up sick and they just get people sick. And it's really annoying, I knew a guy who showed up work and he announced to the room that he had 102-degree fever. And we all looked at him like, why are you here? Go home. Go home and take care of your fever. You shouldn't be working. This was a maintenance guy. But people are stubborn, and it's likely that's what's going to happen, which is why it's probably not going to be contained at all, even if it gets hot. Eventually, it'll come around to you. You'll get hit with it. You'll have to get sick. And if you continue to work yourself, it's more likely you'll probably get the pneumonia, which is what kills people in this instance. It's not the coronavirus. It's going to be the pneumonia you get as a result of the coronavirus. So take care of yourself. If you get sick, stay home. Sleep a lot. Drink a lot of juice, water, hydrate. In other words, don't drink booze. Take your cold medicine, take your ibuprofen, whatever you need to take medicine-wise. And if you get really sick, go to the doctor if you can get there before things get out of hand. Otherwise, just hunker down, have your soup, your hot tea, whatever, and try not to go anywhere. You really shouldn't. And once the virus starts going around, that's when you really got to cut out going to public places, going to out to eat, any of that, because you want to limit your exposure. If you're not sick, you want to try to be the last person who gets sick on this virus if you can, because you don't want to be sick at the peak of this. Because if you get really, really, really sick, the hospital is going to be jammed full of people. Some of them will be legitimately, need oxygen and they're dying. Others will just be in a panic because people are stupid and they're going to jam up the hospital going, oh my God, I think I have the coronavirus. And then showing up the hospital probably gives them the coronavirus. So anyway, in conclusion, I don't want anybody to panic. I'm in a bathrobe just because I'm relaxing. It's Friday. I'm not sick. I'm a little nervous because I'm going to a public event on Sunday, Nerd Fest, Swedesboro Holiday Inn, but I will wash my hands. I have hand sanitizer. I'm happy to shake your hand, but please don't be offended if I rub the hand sanitizer right after. Bit of a germaphobe. If you're sick, though, you shouldn't be out at all. But if you're not sick, or you don't have any symptoms, I should say, you're not going to know whether or not you have the coronavirus. But you should come out to the Swedesboro Holiday Inn for Nerd Fest. And if you're really antsy, put on a mask. I'm sure it'll be fine. We're not at the point where there's a lot of cases in the United States. They're all out west. There's no cases in New Jersey. So again, don't panic, but now is the time to go buy your stuff because no one is panicking. No one's talking about this. Cases haven't broken out here. So this is a good time to stock up. Okay? All right. Stay calm. Carry on.